So hello and welcome to Ewe Sew You. My name is Zoe and this is my channel all about the crafty bits and pieces I get up to. I knit, I sew, I spin on a drop spindle, I dabble in weaving from time to time, and anything else that takes my crafty fancy. But today we're having a look at some patterns that I thought might be good for autumn. So grab a brew, put your feet up and let's get started. Welcome back to any returning viewers, and to any new viewers, a very warm welcome to you. Before I get into the patterns that I had a look at that I thought would work for autumn transitional wearing and making, I just wanted to touch base a little bit on current events. So I'm filming on Friday the 9th of September, so obviously yesterday we had the news break of the Queen passing, so that's head of state of the UK and various Commonwealth nations and so on. Whether you're a staunch royalist or not, that does make it a little bit peculiar at the moment. The Queen came to the throne the year my father was born, so that's 3-4 generations of people that have known no other monarch. So our currency is going to change, our stamps are going to change, our post boxes are going to change, and we all have to remember different words for the anthem. So it's all a little bit weird. There's a lot of wall-to-wall news coverage of people talking about their feelings on the matter, and that's going to continue for a little while. So we're going to have about 2 weeks of national mourning, which essentially means it's going to impact on state occasions and that kind of thing. Some of the strikes that are due to go on at the moment have been called off for the time being. I'm sure they'll come back again later because I doubt anything's been fixed. The Tour de Britain was called off as well. So that kind of thing is going to shift around a bit. And in about 2 weeks' time will be the funeral. And apparently we may possibly be getting effectively a bank holiday, a national day of mourning on that day. After that, things will return relatively back to normal until, obviously, Charles's coronation. So he's opted to go by King Charles III. It's a bit of a dubious name for a king, but it was his choice. So, yeah. If you're not sure why I think it's dubious, history. Charles I, Charles II. Not the most obvious choice of name for becoming king, but there we go, like I say, his choice. I'm not entirely sure what that makes us, because technically we've just finished the second Elizabethan period. I'm sure in years to come it's going to be known as, like, I don't know, internet age, that kind of thing. But yeah, we've become something else now, and I'm not entirely sure what. So yeah, it's a little bit peculiar. But that being said, we're not here to talk about the royals. We're here to talk about some patterns. So let's get into it. In the UK, we are currently in meteorological autumn, which happens in September, quite early in September. It's just how the weathermen split up the year, basically. So we are thinking about layering pieces, we are thinking about preparing for colder weather. So I know in the southern hemisphere you're thinking in the opposite direction at the moment, but these patterns will still be around, still be available when you get to your colder years, and because colder months. And I'm thinking layering, so some of them will be good for spring as well, and then you can bring them back out again when you hit autumn. Some of them might even work for cooler days in the summer. So particularly some of the variants that are available with them. So some of them have got long sleeves, some of them have the option of shorter sleeves. So let's get started with some tops. So yeah, like I said, I was looking for layering pieces. I was also looking for long sleeves in particular. So let's start with the Bara Studio Celine long sleeve top. Most of these sewing patterns are paid for patterns. I'll tell you when I get to the free ones. Or free one, I think there's only one that's free. So most of them are paid for. I will obviously link to all the patterns down below. So the Celine long sleeve top is a turtleneck top with long sleeves. It's quite close fitting and fairly basic sort of shaping to it. Size wise, it does go up to a 46-inch bust, which I know is not the best, but sewing patterns aren't quite as far along the size inclusivity updates as knitting patterns. I believe it's a little bit more of a complicated process to get the patterns adjusted. I'm not going to swear to that because I don't draft patterns myself, but that's my understanding of it. So the Celine Longitude top, as I say, quite a basic, close-fitting turtleneck long sleeve top. So nice and versatile for layering. To looking at the photos here, there seems to be a cuff type thing happening. It may just be a hem, but it's a little bit tricky to tell on some of these fabrics. Yeah, it's just a hem. So they've got a turned over and over again hem on the sleeves, and I can see that under pinafores, I can see it with jeans, I can see it with skirts. So yeah, so nice versatile basic turtleneck long sleeve top. So sticking with the long sleeve tops, in fact we'll stick with the turtlenecks to begin with. We have another fairly basic turtleneck with the Made My Wardrobe Kezia top. So this is a slightly pricier pattern, it has to be said, than the Celine top, but the turtleneck seems a little bit higher in the pictures, seems to be a bit of a looser fit, but again it's a nice simple basic turtleneck top, good for layering, good for popping underneath things. And this one, the bust went up to 49 inches, so it's slightly better on the size inclusivity than the Celine. Still not quite where you'd want it to be, but we're getting there. As I say, size inclusivity with sewing patterns, it's going to take a little bit longer than with knitting patterns because you have to get the entire file rejigged with proper software, and I don't understand how they do it. It's not just numbers. With knitting patterns, you work out the numbers, you update the PDF file, that's that. But these layered multi-size sewing patterns and the blocks needing to be adjusted and that kind of thing, I don't know if these particular companies are looking at expanding their size ranges, but I would expect to take a little bit longer than with knitting patterns. So my third turtleneck pattern is the Christine Haynes Piper top. This is sort of in between price-wise the other two. This one is a very 60s inspired turtleneck. I think it would be particularly good for those of you in the Southern Hemisphere looking for a transitional garment because it's designed with short sleeves. There's a short sleeve option and there's a 3/4 length option for the sleeves. The turtleneck itself seems a little lower, but I think it's been folded over in the photos. Looking at the line drawings, it does seem to have the option for a thicker neck. So that one, the bust goes up to 45 inches. Okay, so my next pair of patterns will also be good for people in the Southern Hemisphere because they are long sleeve t-shirts, or at least t-shirt patterns that have a longer sleeve option. Okay, so Jennifer Lauren Handmade has a slight vintage edge to her patterns. That's where her inspiration is, kind of 40s through to 50s, 60s. So the Esme top, it's a t-shirt pattern, v-neck t-shirt pattern with the option for long or short sleeves and the option for a v-neck or a shawl collar neckline. So you can get quite a few options out of this one. There's a slight batwing edge to it, so that's the sort of 50s shaping there. So yeah, I think that's going to be a nice versatile pattern. Whether you choose to do the shawl neck or the v-neck. The shawl neck feels a little bit more modern to me than the v-neck option, particularly when it's got the long sleeves. But yeah, so lots of variety there, and this one goes up to a 62 3/4 inch bust because Jennifer Lauren Handmade does cup sizes. So the curve version, the larger sizes, because she has a regular block and a larger block, a curve block. So she has that wider range of sizes, which is really good. So yeah, so that's the Esme top. The other long sleeve tee pattern that I was looking at, so the non-turtleneck one, is a Forget-Me-Not Patterns top. Now, I have previously made a couple of Forget-Me-Not tops. One was a t-shirt that had origami sleeves, and one was another t-shirt pattern, but I did it with big balloon sleeves and long cuffs, and that was a free pattern. So that there's quite a nice little twist on the Forget-Me-Not patterns. I'd say they're elevated basics. So they're nice and versatile pieces, but they always have something a little bit unusual about them, and this top is no exception. This is the Viola top. So for this one, we've got the option of 2 different necklines, and they have this pleated detail to them. One of them has a bit of a collar to it, and then the pleats across the front, and the other one omits the collar. And it comes with long sleeves. Some of the photos are in 3/4 sleeves, so yeah, long sleeves and 3/4 length sleeves. I did find that the instructions for the Forget-Me-Not patterns were particularly good when it came to the quirky aspect of them. The free pattern that I've got, they've got some very good instructions for how to do the V-neck neckband, and the t-shirt that I did, the pattern instructions for the pleats in the sleeves were very good. So yeah, Forget-Me-Not patterns, nice clear instructions, and some quirky little details. So that's a nice elevated basic long sleeve tee there. You might want to think about what you're wearing it with a little bit more than your basic tees, because you wouldn't want to lose that pleated detail. So this might be one more for open front cardigans, for skirts, for jeans, that kind of thing, rather than say the dungarees and the pinafores, depending on where your straps and bib fronts end up being. But yeah, I quite like the Forget-Me-Not patterns. So that's tops, long sleeve tops, turtleneck tops, all covered. I will be coming back to sweaters a little bit later on, but let's talk bottom halves, and let's go to some leggings. So I've got 2 legging pattern options, well, legging jegging options for you, both from Patterns for Pirates. One is paid for and one is free, and yeah, I quite like the Patterns for Pirates patterns. The first option I'm going to show you is a pattern I've actually made, which is the Sos Knit Pants. I wear these all the time. I did make them with an add-on for the other pattern that I'm going to talk about in a minute, because you can swap out the waistband, and because the blocks are the same, you can put the waistband from one on the other. But the Sos Knit Pants are jeggings, so they're tight-fitting leggings type knit trousers with pockets, and they have a free add-on that I haven't used yet that gets this like moto effect on the knee. So you've got a bit of variety there. They come in a straight leg and they come in a close fitting version. I've made the straight leg version, which for me was a little bit wide, but I think that's more to do with the size of my hips than anything else, as the proportions just didn't quite work for me. So I know that next time I make them, if I make them in the straight leg, I need to taper them in a bit, but that's fine. They do them in adult and child sizes. They're pretty good on the size range for Patterns of Pirates. So the SOS patterns go up to a hip size of 58 inches, and they're drafted for somebody who's 5'5", so they give you that information on the website, which is good. And they also show you images of people who've made the pattern, so the sewists that have bought and made the pattern in all different sizes on the website, so you do get a really good idea of how they're going to fit. So yeah, so I really like the way Patterns for Pirates operate. The other Patterns for Pirate option that I wanted to share with you is a free pattern, again, child to adult, and it's the peg legs pattern. So this is a legging pattern. Again, there are all sorts of add-ons that you can get for it, from contrast strips down the side to pockets to put in it, to a higher waistband. I think they do a maternity version as well, but I'm not sure. So yeah, so a nice versatile basic legging pattern, and the hip size on those goes up to 64 inches. So yeah, they are a good brand for inclusivity. You've got shorts length, cycling shorts lengths, capri length, ankle length. So yeah, full range of varieties of the peg legs. Okay, so moving on to trousers rather than leggings and jeggings. Again, we're looking at sewing patterns not being always great for size inclusivity. So I was looking for patterns that had at least close to my size at the top end of their size range. But I mean, it would be nice if they went a little bit further, because I am larger than average, but not huge. So the first pair of trousers that I wanted to share with you is by Sew to Grow. It's the Port City pants, and they go up to a 50-inch hip, which is still a little on the small side for me, but better than a lot of them. So these are quite smart. You could dress them up, dress them down. I don't think it would be too difficult to grade them out at the hips and the waist by adding on to the side seams. Just make sure that you do the same to the waistband if you do that to the legs themselves, and obviously check the measurements against the finished garment size. I looked at the body measurements rather than the finished garment size. So these are straight leg, straight front, pocketed trousers. And they're great for the office, and yeah, I think you can dress them up, dress them down. So I thought that they're quite a nice pattern. I do think for a lot of people they may need a bit of tweaking. They do think, obviously the Fold Line website that I'm looking at for them thinks that they go from up to about a size 22-24 in the UK. If it's a 50-inch hip, I'm not sure. That'll be the lower end of a 22, as far as I'm aware. So yeah, so larger than average, but still room to grow, shall we say. But yeah, I think they do have potential. They look like quite a simple sew, and trousers are tricky enough to fit. You don't want anything too complicated if you're not used to sewing trouser patterns. The other trouser pattern that I wanted to share with you is a little bit larger. It goes up to 53 inches on the hip, and that's the Wardrobe by Me Hepburn pants. And obviously all these patterns will be listed down below. So these ones have a slight vintagey feel to them. They're a wider leg than the Port City pants, and as I say, they got up to a 53-inch hip, so a little bit better on the size inclusivity side of things, but still room for manoeuvre there. Waistband with 5 belt loops on it. It's a fly front, so it's a zip fly. Side pockets, welt pockets on the rear. So a few skills there that welt pockets do take a bit of thinking about. Practice on some scraps first. But yeah, there's some nice little details. Like over the welt pocket, there's what looks like a seam line. I suspect it's some sort of darty type thing. That will help fit a bit, so that's a nice touch. The waistband isn't massively wide, so it's like a standard sort of jean width of waistband. So if you're somebody who doesn't like the thicker waistbands, because obviously Port City trousers had a thicker waistband, these might be a good option for you. Again, I don't think they'd be too difficult to grade out at the hips and the waist if you needed to, by a few inches. You just obviously want to make sure that you're following that through into the waistband and possibly into the side seam. But obviously if you're increasing the hips and you also increase at the side seam, that's going to make the trousers even wider than they are, and they are quite wide already, so you might want to taper it into the side seam a little bit. But yeah, it shouldn't be too tricky to do. You'll want to check the rise on these ones as well, particularly with the larger sizes, and particularly if you're grading out, to make sure you've got enough room to sit down, because we like to do that. So yes, that's trousers covered. I just had a couple of patterns there to show you. And we'll move on to things to wrap us up in to keep out the chill. So cardigans, sewn cardigans first, and then we'll talk about some knit cardigans. So the first sewn cardigan that I wanted to share with you is by Fibre Mood. It's the loose cardigan. I'm not sure what language they're taking it from. Loose, one of the two. And it's a nice, cosy, long line, casual cardigan that you can wear open fronted. You can wear it with a belt. They give you the option of doing that. So there's a tie belt included, I believe. Depending on your fabric choice, that could make it look a little bit like a dressing gown. But cosy nonetheless. And there's big pockets in there as well. So yeah, that's a nice, versatile, depending on the fabric you choose. You can wear it to the office, you can wear it casually. They have got a suggested option of making it sleeveless. That's not in the line drawing, but an optional hack that you could make. And they do obviously make sure that they do state in the description to make sure that you bind the arm size nicely if you're going to take that option. So that's the loose cardigan by Fibre Mood. And the other sewing cardigan that I wanted to share with you is the Layla Jane Patterns Madeleine Ballet Sweater. So both of these cardigans I don't think would be too difficult to adjust for bust if you needed to, because they're wrap patterns, so they're quite forgiving anyway for that kind of thing. The Layla Jane one may be a little bit more tricky than the Fibre Mood one to make that adjustment on, because it's a closer fitting cardigan. It's a classic ballet wrap style, cropped length. It'd be good over dresses, good over higher waisted trousers and skirts, that kind of thing. And you have the option of doing it with the ties or with buttons, which was a feature that I didn't see on other ballet wrap style cardigans. So that I thought was a nice, interesting touch. Okay, so that's our sewing cardigans. Let's have a little look at some knitting patterns. And the knitting patterns, I've only looked at free patterns, and I've only looked at patterns that are available off of Ravelry. So these ones are all through Lovecrafts. So they're all free on that particular website. A lot of them will be on Ravelry as well. I just wanted to make sure that people who can't access Ravelry would also be able to access these patterns. And I've gone for Lovecraft because, like on Ravelry, you can put together a pattern library on Lovecrafts from various different designers. So you can sort of store things in one place. So the first cardigan that we're going to look at there is the grey Dolmen cardigan, which is patterned by Irina Anikieva. I hope I'm saying that correctly. So this is a nice slouchy open front cardigan, and it goes up to a bust of 50 inches. That's a body size again, not finished garment size. It's designed for Barocco Ultra Alpaca, so it's a worsted weight cardigan. So although it's a longer length cardigan, it should be quite quick to knit up because chunkier wools are quicker to knit. And yeah, I think it's a good basics kind of cardigan to put into your wardrobe. Nice and cosy. There's some chunky cables on there and some other nice textured details with this. What looks like a ribbed panel on its side down the back there. So some interesting construction details. There's a bit of a vent at the back. So yeah, I think that'd be a nice interesting knit and a good sort of wardrobe staple for the colder days. I'll sling it on in the evening, or if we get snow, that kind of thing. So that's the grey Dolmen cardigan. Okay, so the next free knitting pattern on Lovecraft I wanted to share with you is the Poorly by Isabel Kramer. So this is a classic 4-ply cardigan. The yoke's done in garter stitch, the rest is done in stocking stitch pretty much. It's a nice, easy to wear, fit into your wardrobe cardigan. Button down front, slight shawl colour, classic alternating thick and thin stripes, and I like the edge detail that she's given with the contrast colour around the edge of the button band and the collar. So yeah, so really classic, easy to wear, nice for those of us that run a little hot, full ply, fingering weight cardigan. So the final cardigan pattern I want to share with you is Harvest by Tin Can Knits. This is a worsted weight cardigan, so a thicker weight. So again, it should be quite quick to knit up. And as with all Tin Can Knits patterns, it's cradle to grave. Goes up to a 68-inch chest, and it starts at 18 inches, which is tiny. So yes, this should be quite a simple knit. I've had this one on my list of things I want to make for quite some time. So it's got a bit of a wrap front to it, sort of snuggling in type feel, which is great. And it's actually part of the same collection of patterns as the Flax Light that I'm working on at the moment. So yeah, so looking forward to eventually getting that one on the needles one day. So moving back to sewing patterns, we're thinking about sweaters now. So for sewing, you're going to be looking at heavier weight jerseys, you're looking at Ponte Roma, fleece backed things, sweatshirting, those sort of heavier weight fabrics. So we're going to start with the Muse Patterns Hippie top. Now this is a batwing sleeved top. The way they've constructed it in the striped fabric on the pattern picture is quite interesting because they've got the stripes going in different ways. There's all sorts of fun and games you could have with colour blocking and pattern matching and that kind of thing with this particular pattern. It goes up to a 50-inch bust. That's, as I say, the body size, not the finished garment size. So do check the finished garment size to see if you're going to need to size out and grade it out a little bit or not. It's much more fitted at the hips than it is further up the body, so that's worth bearing in mind. It's got a nice sort of 80s vibe to it. And they do say all sorts of weights of fabrics in the pattern description for this particular pattern. So you can do a lighter weight one for the summer, to Southern Hemisphere, I'm looking at you. And you can do heavier weights for those of us that are moving into the colder season of the year. So yeah, I think that's going to be quite an interesting one to do. In the heavier weight, it'll be good for those autumn days where it's not quite cold enough to use a coat, but too cold to go out without something on. I suspect it'll be a bit tricky to get underneath some of the coats and jackets out there, so that's worth bearing in mind. And the other sewing sweater that I wanted to show you is by Hey June Handmade. This is the Talon sweater, so it's got some interesting features to it. So yeah, so the Talon sweater, it's got two optional necklines, so you can have a turtleneck or a cowl neck, and it's got this crossover front that makes it look almost like a cardigan. Long cuffed sleeves, so I think it's going to be a nice, easy to fit sweater. It goes up to a bust size of 46.5 inches. Again, I don't think it's going to be too difficult to size up. You will need to think about the crossover and make sure that you're extending the crossover portion as well as the underneath portion to make sure you've got enough coverage there, if you need the larger sizes. So they are saying the finished garment bust size is 50 inches, so you may have a bit of wiggle room there. So that's my last sewing pattern to share with you. So for knitted sweaters, again these are free patterns on Lovecraft. Let's start with the Keiko Sweater by Sari Nordland. This is a straightforward raglan sweater. It's worked in either worsted weight yarn or sport weight held double, and it goes up to 48.75 inches bust measurement. So that's the body size, so that there is 3 to 6 inches of ease there. So look at the finished measurements to see whether that's going to work for you. And again, being a fairly straightforward stocking stitch raglan sweater with a bit of confidence behind you, you might be able to adapt that into a larger size. Following that, we have two patterns by Paint Box Yarns. These I don't know if they're available anywhere other than Lovecraft, but they're certainly on Lovecraft's. I know they are heavily stocked by Lovecrafts. I have a sneaking suspicion they are connected to the company that owns the website. If not the same company, I'm not 100% sure. But they've started doing some really quite amusing patterns. First one is definitely this time of year. Whatever hemisphere you're in, it's the Halloween Interchangeable Motif jumper. So that's in Simply DK, or Simply Chunky. So paintbox yarn Simply Chunky, and it's a, again, raglan sleeve pullover, fairly straightforward construction wise, but it comes with two different colourwork motifs. It looks like intarsia to me. So we have a pumpkin and we have a skull. So that's a bit of fun for this time of year. And so yeah, should work up quite quickly as well, being a chunkier weight, which is good as we're in September now and Halloween's what, end of October. So yeah, nice autumny Halloweeny sweater coming up there. And the other paintbox yarns pattern that I wanted to share with you is a bit of fun. I've seen it around for a little while now when I'm browsing patterns and stuff. But I think it would work really nicely for the autumn in particular. If you chose colours similar to ones they've done in the image for the pattern, it definitely would work for an autumn colour palette. But yeah, mix it up however you like. This is a Simply DK pattern, and it's the multi-tartan jumper. So yes, another one that is a lot of fun. And let's see if I've got the bust sizes. 107 centimetres for the multi-tartan. Don't know what that is in inches. Yeah, 107 for the Halloween one as well. So I'll do a bit of conversion and let's see if I can work out what that is in inches for you and pop it on the screen. So that's the standard pullovers. I do have two more free patterns to share with you. They are both from yarn companies and they're both poncho-y, swoncho-y type things. So the first one is definitely more of a swoncho than a poncho, and it's the Blish sweater in Barocco Blackstone tweed. So it's got this sort of poncho-y shape, but there are sleeves and it is enclosed at the bottom. Nice cable detail down the front. Looks like eyelets along the sleeve increases there. And this looks so cosy and warm and snuggly. So we've got eyelet increases, so yarn overs to increase down the sleeve. So you get this line down there as well. So that's to fit bust up to 50 inches, which is 127 centimetres. So that gives you a bit of a sense of the size of the paintbox yarn ones. So yeah, so that's just looks like a nice snuggly funnel necked poncho-y swoncho-y thing. And the other one is more on the poncho end of things. There is a ribbed waistline to it, but it is the Wallis Sweater by Rowan. So we've got this lace pattern all over it. The sleeves are certainly giving me poncho vibes, but that ribbed waistline gives it more of a feel of like 40s sweater. I suspect it's named after Wallace Simpson, but I'm not sure. So that's in a Rowan Kid Classic. So again, a relatively affordable yarn, being a commercial brand. Not that all the commercial brands are like cheap, but it's not like you're buying a sweater's quantity of hand-dyed yarn, because that's more of a luxury product. So yeah, so that's my free knitting patterns, and I hope you found that useful and interesting, ready to stock up your pattern stash for the transitional seasons. Whether or not I get any of these made myself is yet to be seen, particularly eyeing up some of those long sleeve tees, because I want to get some of that done for my Make 9, and the peg legs as well I want to make up for my leggings part of the Make 9 this year. We'll see about the sweaters. I've got a few knitting projects on the go already. So we'll see about the knitting ones and we'll see about the sewing ones. But yeah, so that's that. If you've enjoyed spending time in my company, I aim to put out a new video every weekend and I'd love to see you in the next one. But until then, happy crafting and bye bye for now.